Hello and welcome back. My name is Nathan House and I am with the Church of Christ in Houston, California. And if you could like or subscribe to this video, that would be appreciated. So we're going to begin the book of Ruth today. I kind of looked at a few most recently in the book of Judges. So we're following right in our Bible. We went Joshua, Judges, Ruth. We're not going to do a verse by verse study of this book, but we're going to look at a few highlights. And today I want to briefly introduce the book. I want to begin by kind of just showing you some key words in the text. So some of the key words that you'll see in the book of Ruth, the word redeem or redemption. This is an extremely important word in the book of Ruth. It occurs 23 times in the 4 chapters. So again, that's a lot of times this word is occurring in a very small book. Also, we have a very significant word in the word kindness or steadfast love. It doesn't occur numerous times. It only occurs 3 times. But the words meaning and its significance in this story is very significant. And then also another word that's kind of interesting to note in this book of Ruth is the city of Bethlehem itself. Bethlehem was first mentioned in the book of Genesis, where Jacob, also known as Israel, buries his wife Rachel there. It's mentioned a little bit in the book of Joshua, a little bit in the book of Judges, but in the book of Ruth it becomes very significant. And of course, for anybody who has some working knowledge of the New Testament, of course, we know that Jesus Christ will eventually be born in the city of Bethlehem. The book of Micah, chapter 5, verse 2, will prophesy that the Messiah, that Christ would come from Bethlehem. So here in the book of Ruth, the city of Bethlehem becomes a prominent idea. And so again, kind of an interesting thing to note in this book, that the city itself is kind of significant in this book. I want to go ahead and look then for just a moment at verses 1 through 5. We're going to introduce this book. So if you have your Bible, or you can follow along on the screen. I'm going to begin here, chapter 1, verse 1. It says, "In the days when the judges ruled." So again, this sets the book of Ruth in a specific time frame of Old Testament history. This book is occurring at the same time that the book of Judges is occurring. And if you just went through with me on the book of Judges, you hopefully remember that the book of Judges is a dark time in the history of Israel. There was no king in Israel. Everyone was doing what was right in their own eyes. So we have this prominent story that it keeps occurring. This prominent cycle that keeps occurring, where the people of Israel abandon God. They forsake Him. They serve the false gods. That's followed by God sending someone to oppress them. That's followed by them crying out to God for delivery. And then that's followed by God sending a deliverer. So that's a cycle that repeats itself 7 times in the book of Judges. The point I'm making right now is the book of Judges is a dark time. And so here we're introduced to this story that is occurring during the dark days of the nation of Israel. This is the time where every person is doing what is right in their own eyes, and there's no king, no centralized government. And so as it opens, in the days when the judges ruled, so we already kind of should know a little bit about what was happening, there was a famine in the land. Well, perhaps the famine was a direct result of God's punishment because of their wickedness, which we keep seeing in the book of Judges. God would punish them for their wickedness. Nevertheless, whatever the cause, there's a famine in the land, and a man of Bethlehem in Judah, he went to sojourn in the country of Moab. So let's come back here again to this. So he's from Bethlehem, and he goes to sojourn in the land of Moab. So he's going to cross over this valley, and either he's going to cross from the north of the Dead Sea, or he'll go around the south. Either way, he's going to cross over to this mountain range on the other side of the Dead Sea. So here's just a picture of that, so you can kind of see. So this is the modern day city of Bethlehem. Those are the mountains of Moab in the back. And so again, if you were here in the city of Bethlehem and you're in a famine, and perhaps you begin to think, well, let's cross over into the Moabite mountains and perhaps things will be better. So this family, a man of Bethlehem in Judah, goes to sojourn in the country of Moab. So he crosses over, and they go to this Moabite land. And just to kind of Old Testament jar your memory a bit, the Moabites were related to the Israelites in a sense through Abraham's nephew Lot. the Moabites being a descendant of Lot. So they go to sojourn in the country of Moab. This man of Bethlehem, who does he go? Who goes with him? He goes, his wife, and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech. The name of his wife was Naomi. The name of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, this man of Bethlehem, the husband of Naomi, he dies. So now Naomi here is left in a foreign land with her 2 sons, and she's a widow. These 2 sons of Naomi take Moabite wives. The name of one of the sons, the name of one of the wives was Orpah. The name of the other wife was Ruth. They lived there about 10 years, but then Naomi's 2 sons died. Mahlon and Chilion died. So look at this kind of a summary of the situation. So the woman, Naomi, was left in Moab without her 2 sons and without her husband. And being, again, the older of these 3 women, right? These 3 widowed women, Naomi probably had a sense of a responsibility, a sense of obligation where she felt that she needed to take care of them. And that seems to be the case. They want to cling to Naomi. They want to stay with Naomi. But in here in these verses, right here, verses 6 and following, Naomi encourages her daughter-in-laws to leave, right? Turn back. Don't stay with me. I don't have any other sons to give you. And so this is kind of the situation that she's dealt. And so again, notice verse 11, Naomi says, turn back. Why would you go with me? I don't have any sons. Look at her words in verse 13. Would you therefore wait till they were grown? Meaning if I did have sons, if I had a son now, would you wait? And so there's obviously nothing that she feels she could offer them. Would you therefore refrain from marrying? No, my daughters. For it is, look at what Naomi says to these 2 ladies. It is exceedingly bitter to me, for your sake, that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me. So again, notice this phrase. First of all, she believes that the situation she is in is a direct result of God coming out against her. So she doesn't like the situation. She's bitter about it. She's even bitter on behalf of her daughter-in-laws. But again, she sees these things as coming from God. So she tells them, and I don't want to make too much of this. It's hard to, but she tells them to return to their gods, which, from my perspective, I don't quite understand that, I guess. Why would you do that? But she encourages them to return to her gods. And so don't follow me. But Ruth says, I'm not going to leave you. Do not urge me to leave you or return from following you. Look at what Ruth says. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May Yahweh, this is all capital, so that's his name, that's his covenant name. May the Lord, Yahweh, do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you. So Naomi says, okay, fine. I'm not going to force you to go. But again, Naomi says, go return to your gods. Ruth says, I'm not. I'm going to stay with you. Was this out of a commitment to Yahweh? Was this out of a commitment to Naomi? Was it both to some degree? Whatever the case, Ruth binds herself to her mother-in-law. Let's come to the end of this chapter, beginning here in verse 19. So the 2 of them, Naomi and Ruth, went on until they came to Bethlehem. So they returned. They leave the land of Moab. They decide to return to Bethlehem. And when they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred up because of them. And the women said, plural, women of the city of Bethlehem said, is this Naomi? She said to them, so then Naomi responds. So they says, is this you, Naomi? Naomi says, don't call me Naomi. Well, why not? Because Naomi means pleasant. So here I'll highlight that. Naomi means pleasant. Don't call me pleasant. My life's not pleasant. Nothing I have is pleasant. Don't call me pleasant. Instead of calling me pleasant, call me Mara, because that describes my life better. My life is bitter. So don't call me pleasant, call me Mara. For the Almighty has dealt, and again, notice what she kind of comes back to, what we'd seen a few moments ago. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. Look at what she now says. This kind of reminds me of the book of Job. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. I went away and I had a husband, I had 2 sons, and now I have came back to the land and I have no husband, I have no sons. Why not? Why has this happened? Because the Lord has brought me back empty, because the Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. Why call me pleasant, or Naomi, when the Lord has testified against me? So just like she said up here, the Lord has come out against me. Now she says he has testified against me. And the Almighty has brought calamity upon me. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. So it's a very interesting and rough situation. I want to read to you a quote taken from a commentary from Morrison. So good, let me read this to you. Of the 2 sexes, the woman is the weaker. Of women, old women are the feeblest. Of old women, widows most woeful. Of widows, those that are poor, their plight most pitiful. Of poor widows, those who want children, their case most doleful. Of widows that want children, those that once had them, and after lost them, their estate most desolate. Of widows that have had children, those that are strangers in a foreign country, their condition most comfortless. Yet all of these meet together in Naomi, as in the center of sorrow, to make the measure of her misery pressed down, shaken together, running over. Then he goes on to say, no man has ever suffered like Job, and perhaps no woman has ever suffered like Naomi. What a bitter life, what a bitter struggle. And so she has her daughter, this Moabite woman, right? This Moabite girl from this foreign land. You know, she's from over here. She's not an Israelite. And in fact, the book of Deuteronomy even forbids those people who were Moabites from even coming into the presence of God. So look at Deuteronomy 23, where you have a list of people that are excluded from the assembly. And come to verse 3, it says, no Ammonite or Moabite may enter the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. None of them may enter the assembly of the Lord. And then he tells why, because they didn't help Israel when Israel needed help. And so Moab is now cursed in a sense. They are not allowed to enter the assembly of the Lord. This is the people of Ruth, forbidden from coming into the assembly of the Lord. This is the one who Naomi has her life joined to. And so it's interesting to kind of come back to this text here. Naomi says, don't call me pleasant, call me bitter. The Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. You know, so many times in our life, we go through hardships, we go through struggles. Sometimes we blame God for them. And, you know, maybe sometimes they are a work of God. Maybe God did allow some calamities to happen in your life. Certainly they were not outside of his control. Sometimes bad things happen, though, simply by chance. The book of Ecclesiastes talks about that. Sometimes bad things happen because of our own sin. There's a natural consequence to sin. Sometimes bad things happen because there is a judgment on us, because God disciplines us. God disciplines those whom he loves. Whatever the case, sometimes bad things happen in our lives. And, you know, and so a lot of times we have atheists, people who don't want to believe in God, that ask the question, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, it kind of makes me just want to pause for a second. Why was this bad thing happening to Naomi? Was it because Naomi had done something wrong? We don't see that in the text. We don't see that it's a punishment of God. It could be that some of the things that were hardships in her life were a punishment upon the nation of Israel. The famine could have been a punishment upon the nation of Israel. But it's something that we need to kind of consider some of these things. Why do bad things happen? Well, there could be various reasons. But there's also something I want to kind of talk about briefly. When these bad things happen to us, how do we respond to them? You know, in the book of Psalms, the psalmist cries out, David cries out. He says, how long, O Lord? Look at the words of David. Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? David looks at his situation here in Psalm 13, and it's bitter and it's bad. And yet we come down to here to verse 5 and notice the words of David. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. And this is the same word that we will see in the book of Ruth that occurs 3 times. This Hebrew word has said, but I have trusted in your steadfast love. Is that something we can trust in? Even in dark days, even in bad moments, even when we're crying out to God, how long can we trust in his steadfast love? David continues, my heart shall rejoice in your salvation. Can we find in those dark moments joy because we have salvation in Jesus Christ? David then concludes this short psalm. I will sing to the Lord. Because even though he has all of these challenges going on, he still concludes this. He has dealt bountifully with me. There will be times in our life where we are going to be on the other side, if you will. We're going to be on the other side of those blessings. We're going to be on the other side in dark days. And we're going to cry out to God, God, how long? But in those times when we're crying out to God, let's remember the steadfast love of God, the salvation we have in Jesus Christ. And let's remember that whatever afflictions and sorrows and difficulties we are going through, there's something bigger and better waiting for us. As we look at the rest of the book of Ruth, we will see there is something bigger and better waiting for Ruth and for Naomi. Please join me again next time. God bless.